You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. So you didn't think it would be that long until we'd be back in the chair again doing the live event on the next system, or systems, plural perhaps, across the world right now. The biggest feature is Tropical Storm Trami, which formed in the Western Pacific in the last 24 hours. And that is moving off towards the northwest over the Pacific Ocean towards, in the general direction of Japan and Taiwan. Exactly where it goes in relation to there is quite interesting. You can actually see the track forecast there right now, and now I'll appear on your screen to say hello. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined by our team in this hour, which consists of quite a few people. I'm joined first of all by David. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, Nathan, and the tropical scene is heating up again, especially over here in the Westpac, and an area of interest over there to the east of the Leeward Islands.
In the Atlantic, quite a few systems there, and probably going to be picking up on that more than anyone is our two Americans here tonight. Orlando, how are you?
I'm doing great. Well, now entering the evening hours, so yeah, I'm doing fine.
And we're also joined by Tim in what was flood-stricken North Carolina. How are things going on there?
Good evening, Nathan. We're still digging ourselves out of the impacts of Florence. Still a lot of roads being flooded over from the rivers that have crested, and a lot of roads being closed, but we're managing. I mean, I'm actually surprised. We're a pretty resilient group down here in North Carolina.
As we look at the Atlantic picture right now, you're confronted with 4 new systems that all have potential to develop. This is the 2-day graphic that we're looking at only, showing those 4 different disturbances. I'll go along with the numbering that they've gone with. The first one, and they usually designate them as the time that they form or something like that. The first one though is off the coast of Africa. That one's 30% in the next 2 days, 48 hours, and in the next 5 days, I'm not sure what the number is on that right now, 60% as it moves off into the Atlantic. Models have been picking up on that one a little bit, but don't expect anything significant. And probably the bigger of the surprises at the minute is the second one, which is up to 40% in the next 48 hours. Maybe not that much of a surprise, but it has been lingering for a little while. Models have been saying it would be a very short-lived system if it did develop. Do any of you guys think it will?
I mean, the potential is there for further development, but neither do I expect much out of it. I'd honestly be surprised if it reaches tropical storm status, but at maximum right now, I'd say tropical depression, it remains on the table.
Yeah. And then you've got you go to number 3. That's the one that people will probably be looking at the most, because models take it into North Carolina, but whether there's probably going to be hardly anything of it. It is at 0% in the next 48 hours, but 30% in the next 5 days, and maybe we'll pick up on that one later. But the fourth one, the one furthest north, ironically has the highest chance of development in the next 5 days. That's 70%. 20% in the next 2 days, in the subtropics. Could be yet another subtropical starting storm.
And that doesn't surprise me, Nathan, considering before the season even started, the subtropics were running almost 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above normal mean temperature for that time of the year. So seeing as many subtropical systems, and even some systems coming out of the subtropics as we have this year, is not really surprising. So seeing another one at 20-7 is not something really that should be too unusual with this season.
Now, if anyone remembers the days of pre-Florence on the project, it's quite difficult to remember now, isn't it? But we did a few live events just before the storm really got going, and we did ones just like this in this very time slot on a Friday night. And in the last hour of that show, we did Guess the Storm. We will do it again tonight if the people are there for it. If the viewers want us to do it, we might do a little bit of Guess the Storm, and people will get angry at each other again. Of course, we will be discussing all the systems in the meantime as well. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air tonight, start your message with Force13 all in text on the YouTube chat, and we'll get through any questions that you might have. I think, no, Isaac's not with us. He's due to be with us. So for the time being, let's go to this imagery that I think David is presenting us of Tropical Storm Trami.
This is the imagery of the tropical storm. The Joy Typhoon Warning Center has virtually adopted the same position of what it did with the previous Super Typhoon. And Nathan was showing the track on the tropical storm. The Mariana Islands had some rainfall. They did issue a flood advisory, but
and of course there's a tropical storm watch over there as well. I don't think there's any warnings there now.
No, I think it's been, other than the tropical storm advisory, Nathan, there's nothing else they've got, considering that the tropical storm is to the, what is it, west-northwest of the area.
Indeed. I just wonder if we could go and scrutinize the JTWC track map a little bit more closely again. Here it is on the screen. The text might be maybe a little bit difficult to make out. I'm not quite sure how you're seeing it on your screen. It might be a bit too small. But the JTWC yesterday, I think it was, or was it earlier today, this morning, was talking about a Category 5 peak from this storm. Another one. Now it's gone a bit off that. It's now calling for a peak of 150 miles per hour, which is just into Super Typhoon status, Category 4. That is on the second last dot there. The reason why they're not going all the way anymore, I speculate, is probably because you can see just how much it slows down towards the end of that track, and that is due to quite a large amount of uncertainty.
Nathan, I've got the text up from the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre. They have it located around 250 nautical miles northwest of Anderson Air Force Base, Guam, tracking west-northwest at around 12 knots. And this is 6-hourly updates, animated and enhanced infrared satellite imagery shows a persistent central dense overcast obscuring the low-level circulation. The microwave imagery is showing additional support to the initial position, showing a small core with deep convection surrounding the system on all but the southeastern quadrant. And the initial intensity of 45 knots is hedge high, and a multi-agency forward current intensity estimates of 2.5 or 35 knots. The tropical storm is tracking west-northwest under the influence of the west.
What do they say about the wind shear forecast?
Wind shear, I know that
let's see if I can just pick it out in that
yesterday.
Text. Favourable environment, low vertical wind shear, robust poleward outflow, and high sea surface temperatures. Basically, rapid intensification can't be ruled out on this system.
updated that, Nathan. The word rapid has been inserted in their latest advisory over the next 48 hours and is supported by specific model or guidance indicating a very high probability of a significant they're supportive of the intensification in the near term. Beyond 48 hours, the environment will still support additional development, although at a slightly slower rate as outflow becomes slightly less robust, dynamic.
Have you been looking at the latest imageries that we're showing here? You can see on the Himawari 8 rapid scan imagery how the storm has been progressing with those massive cloud tops on the eastern side. Now some people might speculate, hey, that might be an eye there. No, I don't think there's anything of the sort. This quite often happens with storms, usually in the West Pacific and in the South Pacific. You don't often see it as much elsewhere. This is what happens in quite weak storms that don't really have an eyewall structure to speak of at all. When they really blow up some of that convection, it can sometimes paint a false picture of maybe an eye developing. There's nothing like that at the minute as far as we can deduce, but that's later down the road, and you just see how it's expanding and blowing everything away around the edges of the storm there around the center. You just about make out on the right hand side of that frame the Mariana Islands, still getting maybe a little bit of rain here and there, but not too much.
They've got quite a bit of convection, but Nathan, I'm looking at the rainbow. Can you switch over to my screen and bring up the rainbow?
Alright, so what we're going to be looking at here from David's screen is a longer loop showing how the system's been progressing in the last about 6 hours or so.
Yep,
7 hours.
Note the massive convection to the west. You can actually see the white appearing. So
yeah, that's pretty much, you know, those last few frames there pretty much correspond with what we've been showing the last half hour.
So, but now, is it a male or female name? Anyway, the tropical storm.
Well, they don't necessarily do it in the same way over there. It can be either sometimes, or it means, you know, they have storms that mean flowers or objects or any kinds of things in the local languages. Indeed, you had one typhoon Kai-Tak, which the only other, I mean, I don't know if the airport was named after anything else, but that's also the name of the Hong Kong airport. There's another imagery there showing the system.
That's a Vorak. And I'm still learning all the different colours in these floaters, but with the Vorak, Nathan, is it the right or the right that is the deepest?
So the grey inside the white.
The grey inside the right. And that represents what?
The greyest parts, the darkest grey parts in the centre there, denote 80-degree cloud tops, roughly minus 80 degrees Celsius, which corresponds to the, you know, some of the highest cloud tops that you can see, and that is the darkest colour available on that scale, on the end of that chart.
I'm going to switch across to the Japanese Meteorological Agency, and for our viewers, Nathan and I were discussing this system yesterday, and the JMA's position has really changed. They have it dropping to 950 millibars, and their current position 998. Nathan, is that what it is, or it's a little bit deeper.
Well, that's what it is. That's what the officials are saying.
Yeah, 1850, 21st. This is
US Navy
yesterday.
ATCF going with 995. No, that is up to date, that 998. Yeah, that is as of... they should be due an update pretty soon, actually. Probably in about half an hour they'll be doing another update.
All right, we'll just have a look at the track from the JMA. And the red line represents 50 knots and higher.
Yeah,
I think I've
whilst
got
you're
that
there,
right.
I want to bring us to the percentage chances from this storm over the next 5 days. Pretty low across these areas, but just to give you a little idea of what we're looking at, 16% on Miyakojima, in the Ryukyu Islands of Japan, being the highest percentage there. The highest percentage in Taiwan so far, 3%, very low indeed. Okinawa, 18% on the southern tip, 15% in Daitojima. This is in the next 5 days. If you were to put that out to the next 10 days, it would probably be much higher percentages. Maybe not by that much because of all the uncertainty involved. But that's just a little glimpse there into what we've got on the table right now. Very early stages in this system, only just developing into a tropical storm earlier today. And, you know, it's going to be a few days before it gets anywhere. We can't show you as many of the model graphics that we usually have because some of them haven't been generated yet. But, in fact, David's showing us another imagery point here of the storm right now. So if you've got any questions, now will be a good time for me to take them. There was one from earlier. In fact, there's two from earlier. The first one is, how much longer do you think it will be until we have Tropical Storm Kirk in the Atlantic?
Huh.
That really just depends on which storm gets its act together the quickest.
Yeah, basically. It could be the one in the subtropics currently, or it could be wave off of Africa. It's anyone's game, basically.
And that's a picture of the Atlantic Ocean right now. You can see at least 3 of those systems there, the 4th one just off the top edge of the screen. Where is Trami was a question there, and it's quite difficult to explain exactly where it is. There's the track map from the JTWC showing you sort of where it is. The first, you see the first quadrant cone thing showing the wind field on the right hand side there. That's where it is, or where it was, as of 6 PM UTC, which is about 4 hours ago now, 3 hours. And yeah, it takes it about 200 and something miles northwest of Guam. Now you can see the Philippines just on the very edge of that cone, menacing as it looks. I would say that it is very unlikely that the storm will affect the Philippines with anything more than a gentle breeze. Let's just see if there are any more questions that came through just then. Okay, not yet, that's good news. But if you do have any questions for us, we're here to help. David, have you got something for us? A flash flood watch remaining in effect over there on those islands. They must have had a lot of rain recently.
Yeah, it's usually that's exactly what ends up happening with in that region at least.
So Orlando, which of these Atlantic systems interests you the most right now?
I think that would have to go to 99.0.
Can you remind us which one is which when we look at the screen here, looking at the whole Atlantic picture? There's 97, 98, and 99.
Well, yeah, it's getting oddly complicated thanks to
Let's just scroll
all the
through.
energy that's like left behind by Florence and already picking up energy in the
So
the
97L is the one that's now at 40%, the one that's approaching the Caribbean. Models don't really have it lasting very long at all. We spoke about that one. Which one did you say you were most interested in? 99.
99.0.
Here's
Yeah, the
98,
one that...
right next to Bermuda, and that might pique the interest of a lot of people when you look at all of those tracks. But this system's expected to remain very weak if it forms at all. Of course, even if it is a Rainmaker only, that's not going to be good news for those particular places that it's aiming for. Not good. And 99, the one that you're most interested in, curious that a lot of those models take it on a recurvature around the Lesser Antilles. And do you buy into that, given that a lot of models did the same with Isaac and that didn't happen?
No, I think it depends too much on a weakness within the ridging for that to occur, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's anything's just going to be gradual development, especially with it already being in a low latitude region. I don't buy into it yet.
It's very low latitude, about 6 north.
Yeah, it's more likely to stay more south than it is to recurve north. That's how I see it, unless it like organizes very rapidly and starts to gain latitude. That's the only way I see it changing.
Now, a lot of people have been saying recently how the Caribbean is completely fitting the definition that it quite often gets, certainly the Eastern Caribbean, of being a hurricane graveyard, killing off all the storms, killed off Isaac. Is there any hope for either of these two systems' chances? I shouldn't say hope, but you get the picture. If one or both of them entered the Caribbean.
I mean, for the 99L, it seems that it could have better luck if it does. Especially if it like is a tropical storm or around that intensity when it reaches if it reaches the Lesser Antilles. But it's mainly due to right now it's basically two things. Well, there's 3 factors. There's wind shear, and then there's dry air, which has been ruining a lot of systems and activity in the Atlantic, and then there's upward motion that's been being hindered recently due to the MJO. So basically, things are supposed to be changing quite soon for late September into early October and forward. So storms might have a better chance of formation, especially around October. And 99L might get a grip of that.
At the minute, I can't find my usual website for showing dry air. So for the time being, let's just pass it over to the sea surface temperatures and show you everything that's going on in the oceans right now in terms of temperature, in case you wanted to get a feel for it. You can see, curious, did anyone want to pick up on what we just had in the last day or two, 19E, the depression that formed in the Gulf of California?
I mean, it was very, very large, and it was very broad, and that basically hindered its development, fortunately, but whatever was left of it in moisture-wise, it just basically headed into Mexico and ended up in Texas, where there's rain falling right now.
Sea surface temperatures there are about 30 degrees by the looks of things, certainly warm enough for a system there. And some storms have taken advantage of that area in the past. One or two that come to mind. I think Hurricane Kiko in 1989 was one of them. And there was another one back in the 60s or the 70s. Someone did ask earlier whether it's the first occasion of a storm actually forming there. I'm not sure, quite honestly. We'll see if we can get an answer later on.
Mexico's been quite lucky recently.
That's very true. We had Mexico down for being the epicenter of Atlantic Pacific activity this year on our forecasts, and has yet to verify at all.
Yeah, it seems the case. They've been very lucky, and hopefully that remains to the end of the season.
Not long left. Well, maybe a little bit. You've still got the whole of October to get through, after all. Looking at the Atlantic, you can see the Gulf of Mexico being actually probably the warmest area of the Atlantic right now. The northern Gulf along the coast from Louisiana around to Florida. About, looks like that's 30 degrees there, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's very comfortable.
And the
water
rest of
over
the
there.
Atlantic, where all those systems are, warm enough. Especially the one at low latitude could get the tropical storm status before the models expect, and that would put the cat amongst the pigeons, I suppose.
Yeah,
And that is why, even just looking now, the 99L is, to me, the biggest concern, for the fact that even if it doesn't make it through the Antilles and it does hit the proverbial graveyard in the Central Caribbean, we do have to remember what happened with Harvey last year. It became a bit of a minimal tropical storm, died out, and its remnants made it up into those warmer waters, into the Gulf, and
So
look what
easy to
happened.
make Harvey comparisons, though, when a lot of systems do go through the same process every year. Not everyone becomes a Harvey, some of them become an Isaac, but yes, it is something to watch for. And also that other system that's on its way, but we don't think anything will come of that. Again, you can see the picture here, just how far south that 99L is. Going back to the sea surface temperatures, showing you the Western Pacific, and indeed the Indian Ocean, where that other cyclone made landfall earlier yesterday. I think it was a very short-lived cyclone that eventually regenerated, feeding off a bit of the energy from Typhoon Mangkhut last week. Incidentally, you can still see the trail of that storm, especially in the South China Sea as you look at this graphic. Much cooler sea surface temperatures there, but still pretty warm in the scheme of things. 28 or so in that area, I think. And when you do look at this imagery, you know, it's not as warm a Westpac as it could be. You know, you could be looking at temperatures of 30 degrees all across the Philippine Sea, but there is nowhere in the Philippine Sea that's at 30 Celsius. It's all to the southeast of Guam and actually to the northeast of the Mariana Islands, off the coast of the Ogasawara Islands of Japan to the east, which could mean, you know, it could spell bad news. The only trail that hasn't been utilized is the late season trail, where you could get something low latitude later on in the season, could threaten Guam, could threaten the Philippines. We'll wait and see what happens later on, but that's how it's looking right now in terms of sea surface temperatures. Interesting. In terms of Trami, they're still good enough. They're not quite as good as they were for Mangkhut, for instance. So I think we can rule out the storm being as strong as that, and the JTWC looks like they are.
Yeah, that's but nonetheless, it's supposed to remain. I mean, anything could really happen with this storm. It's definitely much more than likely that it'll definitely intensify, but it's mainly too early to tell where it's gonna go.
David was just showing us there another view of that potential graphic.
This one from the National
Yeah,
Weather Service.
this is actually identical to the JTWC forecast. It's just presented in a different way, and sometimes I actually prefer to look at this one because it does also tell you the I think that's the typhoon wind field in the red zone.
I think you are right. Yeah.
It doesn't
The
extend
yellow
all
is strong.
doesn't
Go on.
extend all the way because that only goes to 3 days.
The blue is tropical storm. The yellow is strong. Tropical storm.
50 knots, I'm guessing.
Yep, 50 knots, 58 miles per hour. And the red, as Nathan said, typhoon, 64 knots, 74 miles per hour. And that is a look at the Anderson Air Force Base, Guam, National Weather Service. Their radar was suspended, and this is just an image, 21:13 UTC or 7:13 AM.
Yep, and as you saw earlier, we were just peeking at a wind shear map, and here is another one. If you're completely confused by all of these arrays of colours, I'll try and simplify it, and it is quite simple, to be honest. All the red zones are unfavourable for tropical cyclone development, so you look if you look carefully towards the middle right-hand side of the screen, there's Invest 97L in a terrible environment, 30 knots plus of wind shear. Into the Caribbean, you can see why no storms have formed there anytime recently, because wind shear is also above 30 knots for the most part over there as well. And on here they put 20 knots as neutral. That could still have a big effect on a storm, but 15 and less is considered favourable according to this graphic in the green areas. So you're looking at areas just north of Hispaniola, the Greater Antilles, into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and a small pocket off the Outer Banks from 98L.
And considering where it's sitting at, I can see why the National Hurricane Center has 98L at 0 and 20. I don't think anything's going to form under 50 knots of shear out there.
No. I wouldn't dispute that in any way, shape or form. So they're taking us back. This is what the wide picture looks like right now. And I think we're now joined by Isaac.
Hello.
Good evening to you. And what is your prevailing thoughts tonight as we look at the two situations again on either sides of the world?
Oh, certainly the Atlantic is increasing in intensity and what do you call it, in activity right now for the moment. And then the Western Pacific surely needs to be watched later down the road for the potential threat from I forgot what the name of it. I don't know what the name of it is, but I'm just going to call it 28W for now. Trami?
Trami. Trami.
Yeah.
I remember tracking the same storm in 2013, actually. It was a very... that was an interesting situation as well. Two storms that were circling each other, tropical depression and what became Trami, ended up moving into the coast of China, just north of Taiwan. They were expecting to become much stronger as well than it actually did, if I'm right, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. I'm just looking at some information, but which Atlantic system are you most looking at right now?
I guess the one coming off Africa right now, and then
yeah, I think that's what we're pretty much all agreeing on.
Yeah, the one in front of it doesn't really look too savvy right now with that shear. It looks pretty bad.
So that's the latest, 40% on 97L, the one that's near the Caribbean. They upped that recently. They do actually say on the National Hurricane Center it's become better organized, and it's interesting to see this kind of wording on a 40% chance. They say a tropical depression could form later tonight or Saturday. And strong upper level winds and dry air will prevent additional development by late this weekend. Considering a weekend doesn't last very long, they're not giving this storm much time if it does form.
That's the one closest to the leewards right now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But the ironic part is that the highest chance in the next 5 days is still the one furthest north, a non-tropical low-pressure system in the central subtropical Atlantic Ocean, midway between Bermuda and the Azores.
I'm guessing they're probably saying that the one with the 40% chance could become a depression because of all how well defined its circulation is, but it's obviously getting exposed by a shear, so unless it has some convective flare-ups over the center, it's probably not going to be that big of a chance for it to develop.
You look at the imagery there, it doesn't look too bad. There's the one off Africa that they're putting at 30% in the next 48 hours, that is. 60% in the next 5 days. That's the latest image of it. Disturbance number 1. And shortly on the screen you'll see disturbance number 2. There it is. A flare up on the right hand side. By the way, it probably looks better than Isaac did in its last days.
Yeah.
And Nathan, I've got some model tracks for 99L on the screen.
Ah, yes. Now this is another of these model sites. let's see if there's any that I can actually pick out there that are of any use to us. It's difficult to see. The CMC taking it right out north. The HMON's in there somewhere. Looks like that takes the system south. So I'll just load up the HWRF and the HMON on my screen and show us some better views of those two models in particular. But you get the general gist of where the system's expected to go when you look at these graphics here. So let's just go and get 99L on the HWRF. They don't think much of it. Weak to moderate tropical storm there, and not a very organized one at that. Let's just see if it has radar presentation here. As I click away, it doesn't organize at all. I'd be surprised if it had a center in any of those images. Let's check the HMON, the other model there, and looking at 99, and it also isn't keen on it at all. Only gets it to 40 knots, and again I'm skeptical as to whether that's as a closed low or not. And it's also got Invest 97 just whilst we're here, and again not fond of this system at all. Nothing coming of it. And I think the HWRF isn't keen on it at all either. I don't think they're keen on any of these Atlantic systems, as a matter of fact. David's now showing us another view of 97.
Yeah, the HWRF, HMON, they're both aligned naturally, but they have it going, what is it, the North and Leeward Islands?
Yeah, but when you look at these lines, by the time you reach those dots just short of the islands, there's nothing left of this system. It's gone. It shouldn't be a threat.
No.
Despite its proximity to the islands. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Do you think Tropical Disturbance 1 will become a borderline tropical storm because of its great organization that it has? Anyone for that?
What was that storm again?
Disturbance 1, the one off Africa.
It certainly has a chance. I haven't seen the SAL graphic or the Windsor graphic yet, but if both of those are alright, it certainly might have one.
I've lost my SAL graphic.
Don't lose SAL.
Hold on, I might have it again. Hold on a minute. Okay, that's good. I've got the graphic, and I didn't realise that they do it on Go 16 now, so that's nice. I mean, I sort of expected that, but it just didn't occur to me that even these graphics would be on Go 16 as well. And this is the latest one. You can see the system there, how those multiple systems, how they come up against the Saharan air layer. Now, not all of this is necessarily Saharan air. They're dry air masses, so that's why off the Gulf Stream, the US East Coast, there's a lot of dry air in that area as well, as you can see. The Caribbean, it's blowing right into the Caribbean, and of course you can see its source off Western Sahara mainly.
Now this SAL map does give a little bit extra concern for 99L, considering 97's out in front of it. If it clears that SAL out in front of it, that could pave a way for 99L to really get organized later on down the road. It might not be something too impressive, but it could maybe make minimal tropical storm strength if it gets its act together and is able to get that SAL cleared out of its way.
And you know, after Florence and everything we've had recently, everyone's making a big deal out of these four systems, but in reality, only one of them is likely to get anywhere beyond minimal tropical storm status, and that's ironically the one furthest north, which could become something like what storm could we compare that one to? But you know, it could make a run for hurricane status even up there. Staying out to sea could still maybe a threat to the Azores later on, but that is the one that's got the best chance of intensifying substantially. And by substantially, I don't mean rapidly, but the most out of any of these systems as we look at it. Dry air looks like it could be an issue for all of those systems as well, but what 99L has in its favour, it's as far south as it is, pretty much as far south as these systems go. You could say that maybe it's because we're sort of getting late on in the Cape Verde season, because it's pretty much closing down around about the end of September or the very early days of October. Usually means that systems form further south when they do form, as opposed to July and August. But those systems moving through, and that one has the best chance to become a minimal to moderate tropical storm, as those models are suggesting. Is there any model out there at all that's suggesting stronger than that, that's not a statistical model? Anyone know?
I would actually have to go and do some research on that and see what I can find.
Okay, well, in the meantime, let's see here. People are asking about the system in the Mediterranean Sea. Has anyone ever seen it? Does anyone know about it in here?
No.
I could go ahead and look at it right now if I pull up something here.
Now, I know it's been mentioned recently in our chat rooms, but we didn't deem it to be tropical really at all. So I'm just going to check up and familiarise myself with how it's looking right now. I was only looking at that yesterday. In the meantime, let's take some more questions. How strong do you think Trami will get? Will it get to Category 4 or 5 Typhoon? That's quite likely.
I certainly think Cat 4 is not out of the question. Neither is Cat 5 at this rate for Trami.
Okay, so I've managed to get an image of this system in the Mediterranean Sea so far. I can't bring anything better than this at the minute to show you what we're talking about. But there is the system, just in between, just off the northern coast of Sicily.
That actually is a little bit further north of what normally is the development region for these kind of systems. Usually you see them south of Italy, west of Malta normally. So to see one in this location, a bit unusual.
That can happen every now and then, though.
A look into its core. It's a very compact thing.
Yeah, I'm noticing that too.
Couldn't call it a thing until further notice.
Trying to get some more images of this thing so I could actually figure out what it's doing.
Let's see if we can get some visible for what we had from this system earlier on. Let's see. Okay, this might take a little while to load, but we're very curious about this European system, so we're going to try and get it. We'll see what happens with that imagery shortly. We'll bring you back to that and see if there is a Medicane on our hands or not. But from what I saw yesterday, it wasn't. And if I go ahead.
Oh, it didn't look too
healthy,
too great yesterday. Yeah, I think it had like a cold core, but I don't know about now.
A cold. There is a shout that it could be subtropical at the minute, but let's just see if we can get this visible imagery. It doesn't look so good on the visible. Let's see if we can show the visible. That's how it's looked today on visible imagery. No, there's nothing to it yet. Nothing to it yet. We'll keep watching it. I mean, quite often these systems can go through Italy and then off into further south.
It does look really disorganized. Maybe a slight spin to it, but not really centralized around the core. So
no, sir. So, folks, we're throwing this one in the bin for now. We'll talk about it again tomorrow if we're on the air. Okay, that's enough of the Medicane for now. Medicane news brought to you by Force 13 HQ. There isn't one.
Mediterranean Storm.
Let's see if we can bring us back to the latest on Trami. which is what we're tracking right now, along with those Atlantic systems. But if you do have any more questions for us, send them in right now. And we're here for quite a while. But we don't have that much really to talk about in the grand scheme of things, so maybe we might just... we're supposed to be doing this for 3 hours tonight, but we might cut it to 2 hours and maybe do some Guess the Storm in the next hour or something. I don't know, we'll see. See what the people want. But we'll be certainly be going less... We'll certainly go less formal in the next hour. Okay, let's see if we can take a look now at the latest imagery on what Trami is looking like. Here it is. There it was. Here it is again. Nope. Yep. In a moment. Not much change to it.
I would like to just quickly say, Nathan, that we are live broadcasting on Facebook.
Yes, I always neglect to say that. You need to interrupt me at the start of every show to say that. We are indeed live on Facebook right now. And I know there is a lot of interest on the Facebook page recently in the Philippines. We haven't really been mentioning the Philippines very much because this storm is pretty clear that it's not going to go there. It would be very unlikely. I think the most that would occur is a gentle breeze off the northeastern tip that was so devastated by Mangkhut last week. Anyway, all the viewers want us to do Guess the Storm, so we'll do Guess the Storm next hour. Okay, you got your wish.
Oh dear.
That means, that means we need a team. That means we need a team over here. I don't think we've got one. Viewers are going to win. All right. There's a question there, a very vague one. How many storms are there going to be? You'll have to qualify that question. I don't know whether you mean today, this week, next year, or what. Haven't a clue. But in the meantime, this is the latest rapid scan imagery on Trami, which is the best of what we've got at the moment on the infrared imagery, and I guess visible imagery shouldn't be far away by now. If you remember back last week, we were looking at the visible images as they first came in on Mangkhut. Looked fantastic. This one will...
I've got a visible, Nathan.
Yeah, visible's been over at Trami for about an hour.
This one, the visible won't be looking quite so impressive on this particular system, but in fact, I think I should be able to show you it now. One of the first visible images of today looks like this as dawn breaks over the Western Pacific again. By the way, it's we've just reached the equinox, haven't we now?
I believe we have, yeah.
So if you look, if we could zoom out all the way to the full disk here, this is, once we see it, hopefully we'll get to see it in a minute, it's very important that we do, very rare occasions, only happens twice a year, where the day and night factor is a straight line across the north and southern hemisphere. Dead straight across a vertical line there, and that only happens twice a year, of course. And now the nights are drawing in the northern hemisphere and the sun's coming out in the south. But zooming back in on the subject at hand, there is the system as it looks right now. It does look much more impressive on visible. Well, it does sort of look impressive on the infrared. It's certainly building up right now, but getting its intensity together. But all this convection counts for very little. It really matters what's underneath all of that. Is it building a good structure? And at the moment, I don't have the answer to that, and I don't know whether any of you guys have any microwave imagery or anything that maybe we could answer that question. So, more questions. What happened to the Central Pacific and the Eastern Pacific? Well, you know, storm numbers go down quite a bit after this point in the East Pac. You get a few more, but I wouldn't say you get many more. Will the 2015, 16, 17 worldwide satellite animations come out? Is a question. And you know, I don't know. That series was made by Jason, so it was up to him, and according to him, the you know, he didn't have the material to work with for 2015 onwards, so I don't think anything's going to be coming of those. I know they were supremely popular as well, just like the worldwide season animations. Who knows? Okay, so what else have we got right now? Anything?
I think we have 93W.
93W, that's also right. And can I confirm this? Is 93W the remnants of Olivia?
I don't know. I haven't
It's
seen
one
the
of
imagery.
these systems over here. Just got to find out which one. It's the
Like
one. It's this one here. Looks terrible, by the way.
Oh. Where did that come on the radar?
You could hardly call that a system. But yep, that's 93W right there.
Oh, here we are. That must have just come on.
No, it's been on for most of the day, actually.
Oh, it looks shocking.
Excellent.
I'm just looking at the visible imagery slider. I just brought it up.
Let's go and take a look at that now. Of which you can see here. Or did. Now David's looking at the ISS tracker.
Yes. Get back.
What's going on?
David's computer problems.
David's having a malfunctioning event.
I was trying to work out which one it was. I think it's back here. There it is.
Finally. Again, that visible imagery of what looks like a terrible looking invest, I have to say.
It looks
Shocking.
shocking.
Alright.
It's the first time I've actually looked at 93W.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Graham has forgotten anything. It's...
We've now got a question, an unrelated question. What category do you think Hurricane Jose of last year was?
Oh dear.
We have to take that question. I mean, you know, it's such a cliche question to be asking. Isaac, what do you think?
Not available.
Not available?
Not available opinion.
Tim, you're a new person on the project, so I've no idea what you think of Hurricane Jose. You tell us.
I would actually have to go back and look at Jose's entire storm track to really
Looks like we're gonna
make
have
an
to.
opinion on it.
Looks like we're gonna have to do debate 13 on this subject because it has people fiercely divided.
I don't know.
Fiercely divided.
Yeah, there's a lot of storms that do that.
Category 4, by the way. Anyway, it's time to take a short break here. We're going to break for a little while. We'll be back at the top of the next hour. What we've just done in this hour will be put on the channel for anyone watching later to catch up on the latest tropical weather situation. But in the next hour, we're going to be running Guess the Storm, and it's going to be a mess because there's hardly anyone here on the team, and the viewers are obviously going to win. It's obvious. So I've got to press the appropriate button now to go to the break, and we'll be back again at the top of the next hour. Stay tuned, this is Force 13 Live, back again shortly.